Welcome back to Philosophy 101.
If I had to rate myself on the philosophy scale, it would be like philosophy like 001. I feel like I know so little. I know I read Meditations, and I read this philosophy textbook that told the story of like all the famous philosophers through a like graphic novel.
Oh,
and I was like, this is already a lot.
Have
you ever read Meditations?
No, I've never read. I've always been philosophy adjacent because.
So you never actually read a philosophy book?
No, no, but a lot of literary theory and that kind of stuff comes from philosophy as it is.
Oh my god, I can already tell this one's gonna be nonsense.
Because like a lot of what we've been talking about in like media classes comes from like the philosophy of how like meaning is interpreted and how meaning is communicated between people.
Intent.
Yeah, and like signs and signifiers and all this good stuff. So like the relationship between philosophy and literary theory and then by proxy media theory is pretty close. So I know things by proxy, but not completely. If I watched Rick and Morty, maybe I'd know. But
yeah,
alas, here we are. I just think the it's
he's doing the wave.
it's I think it's impossible to exist in a time right now without either actively researching and like understanding what's going on now or actively ignoring. Like there's no I think we're at a time now.
I mean, you could apply that to like any.
I would say now though.
It's such a broad statement. Either you're involved or you're not. It's like, yeah, okay.
Well, to me, I would say with the environment of information as it's being spread, it's like for most adults at this point in time, the number of adults who have access to resources
that they choose to ignore
is at an all-time high. I'm not saying for everyone, but I'm saying in general, it feels like either in this point in history, people are choosing to like you basically now it's like if you live in America and you have access to the internet or a radio or television or any kind of mass communication medium, you know what's going on with COVID-19. Like, you know that it exists.
A lot of people choose to not vibe with that idea.
See, exactly. See, and that's what I mean. Is like you at this point in time, it's really like either you're choosing to try to understand what's going on, or, and this is a continuum. I shouldn't say either or, but it's like everybody's kind of on the continuum where it's like either you're trying to understand and you're trying to figure out what's happening, or you can slide on the other end to like ignoring what's happening or choosing to consume things that are different. I shouldn't simplify things, but I just kind of did. But.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to understand because I think there's a very large amount of people of an older generation that is unwilling to embrace like the internet and like newer technologies and social medias.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And do them kids on cell phones type stuff. And one part of me is all
right, I was going to say, to be honest, our generation did birth the "Let Me Take a Selfie" song, so I can understand why people
Isn't that the Chainsmokers?
Yep.
People love the Chainsmokers.
No! I hate the Chains. Closer is one of the worst songs in existence, and you cannot deny that.
I don't even... I'm not going to lie to you. I don't keep up. If there's one part of like media that I don't really keep up with as well, it's music. I only really listen to like hip-hop or...
See, and I only listen to gay stuff.
Like Cupcake?
No, I don't listen to her, surprisingly. It's hard. It's hard to, like... I'm trying to understand, like, how conspiracy theories happen. Or, like, people who say that things are conspiracy theories. Well, it's the same thing, like
you said, is it's like that distrust or questioning of government. It's not really that different of a sentiment from that. It's just you've chosen that your narrative is the one that you distrust.
I think part of it is like the people's desire, or not the people's as in like
we
the community, but I mean like I think for people individually to have some kind of grand narrative or understanding as to how the world works, I think conspiracy theories go into those. So if you think, for example, like the government, there's a bunch of shady stuff happening all the time, right, that we don't know about. And for me, I just view that as another part of reality. Whereas for other people, it's that everything exists, or, aliens exist because the government is doing it. So like the way I approach it is the government is probably hiding a lot from us, but that's just another aspect of our reality. Whereas other people treat it as our reality entirety is fake. In its entirety is fake because of government intervention. You get what I'm saying?
I go, and I don't know. I don't say I feel that way, but I can understand just like that skepticism.
Yes, definitely.
The one thing that I've learned too is just getting more involved with politics and the world narrative is it's that same adage that the truth is stranger than fiction.
Oh yeah.
Whatever is like actually happening is not necessarily going to be like aliens, but it's going to be weirder and more convoluted than you imagine.
I mean, like scientists who are like astrophysicists and all that stuff have talked to, like, from what I've read basically, is that it's vastly more likely for like a random comet just to hit us and have like bacteria on it or something akin to bacteria on it, and like that would be our quote unquote first encounter, rather than to have like or just something that completely doesn't look like human.
Do you believe in aliens?
I don't believe in them in like the way that people talk about them, or the way it's like I don't believe that something like E.T.'s gonna come.
No, I don't believe that it's like gray man, but I think that the chances of us being the only intelligent life in the vastness of the universe is like literally impossible.
Oh yeah, it's impossible. If life has existed here, if there's only so many like iterations of molecules that combine, like it has to have happened somewhere else.
But it'll be in a form that we can't even it won't be like cartoons. It'd be something you can't even like see or understand, a different state of matter or something like that.
Honestly, I think like something like the Iron Giant could exist too, where it's kind of this
it's like mechanical.
Yeah, mechanical, because like realistically to travel across the solar system, like you would need some kind of device, because the way unless like something learns to thrive within within dark matter, it's not gonna be able to traverse across space without some kind of device.
I guess like speaking in like philosophical terms, something that I always hear people talk about is like, oh, don't sweat it. The universe, like the Earth is so small and the universe is so big, so it's that sentiment never made me feel better. It's
Really?
I don't know. I just I never found any solace in like, okay, I get it. The world is infinitely vast, but here's the thing: we're talking about me.
What about what I want?
My problems and wants seem to surpass the vastness of the vacuum of space.
See,
and,
I like the opposite though.
Yeah, what's that?
Because to me, it's like, for me, I think of it as more of like an individual versus like what's good for the individual versus what's good for society. And for me, it's like I would rather have it be where it's kind of like the mask thing. It's like, well, sure, it's not the best thing, but like I don't care how it affects me individually. I care about people not getting sick from it. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's like, if I'm only like a speck in the universe, that means I'm part of something bigger. So therefore, I have an obligation to not only make life good for me, but for other people
I understand that, and I understand like the more collectivist idea, but I'm just saying, like, if I feel upset about something, the fact that there's other people that might be more upset.
Oh, that's stupid.
Yeah, I'm saying it more like that. It's like whenever people try to make you feel better about stuff, and they'll say, "Oh, don't worry, it's just a small," and it's like, well, yeah, but I am upset, and the fact that other people might be more upset or not upset, or it's like that there's like that doesn't really make me feel better.
See, and that's something that I think that we have learned more, as in like millennials and Gen Zers, is like we've learned more about like theories of emotion and like interpersonal communication, and so like it was I think it's a kind of a something that's going out of style.
I'm trying to say
is like rejecting or being or
dissuading
like,
or just like
or like denying feelings. And I think now it's more of like people are understanding that and are spending more time like researching how to respond to people who feel in those kinds of ways. Maybe I'm just projecting because that's kind of what I'm doing right now, but
that's exactly it. Is I think like kind of the traditional idea is like, oh, don't feel that way. You don't need to feel. Where I think like the more modern and more mature approach is to validate like that's okay that you feel that way, and like, oh, you're angry. That's okay.
Yeah, and to me it's like the goal is to understand, and I think this has to do with like also the anti-racism stuff too. The goal is not to understand what the other person is experiencing and then put a value judgment on that. There's one in the middle, by the way.
Wait, what the heck?
Yep, there's one in the middle at the bottom.
What the heck? I didn't even know.
I think this has to do with the anti-racism stuff too, where it's like I'm listening to you and I'm not
watch
choosing
me screw
to.
this up, boy.
Oh, I am listening to you. I'm trying to understand where you're coming from, and rather than saying this is how you should respond to it, I'm gonna say I understand. I can't understand like emotionally what you're going through, but I can understand like intellectually the argument you're making, and I understand why this kind of thing is affecting you the way it does. And that I think can be an effective way to understand other people on an individual level, but then also understand like how people
that's
get
not.
oppressed
I mean,
in
it
general.
works on the macro, like you're saying,
Yeah.
but even on the micro, like 9 times out of 10, if somebody's going through something, chances are you have not been through that same situation. So to say like, hey, there's not. It's better to say like, wait, what the heck am I? Oh, okay, there we go. Now we did it.
Yeah, to go.
What was this called? Swim, salvage, or splish, splash, salvage. That's what it was.
Yes. I've had a lot of coffee, so I'm not the most cogent right now, but I also I've been listening about like I've been listening to some podcasts, and I've listened to one about apologies recently too. I think I already mentioned this once, but it kind of goes along the same lines as like understanding where people are coming from. And I think this is why so many politicians and celebrities and people are bad at apologies, is because people approach it as a way of saying like, well, since I said I'm sorry, then therefore it's okay what I did.
Yeah.
Rather than being like, oh, like even though I said I'm sorry, I need to like do something. I need to change my behavior.
Whenever I see that, I always think of that part in Evangelion where I don't know, Shinji just apologizes for something and Masato says something like, Shinji, you always just apologize to avoid having to think about any self-criticism or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think, because that's 100% true, people apologize as like just a way to, okay, let's move on and not talk about it. Like I said sorry, now it's over, and it's like, well, first of all, you have to maybe explain why you did what you did or say what you said.
Yeah.
And we got to talk about maybe why this isn't going to happen in the future. And it's like, do you actually feel regret, or are you just kind of scared that people are upset at you, or just guilty?
Yeah.
It's a lot more complicated. An apology is a lot more complicated than just like a sentence.
Yeah. And so we have, I mean, there's the crazy things happening with like YouTube stars now or whatever, where people are like,
I'm so checked out.
But I think it's interesting to see how people are like trying to apologize, or like they're trying to like show that they're, and it's just like I've seen other people who have like, I watch a lot of Drag Race, so I know a lot of drag queens. But I mean, like, there are some people where it's like, oh, I said something bad, or I made a bad joke or whatever, and I'm sorry. Where there are other people who are like, who said sorry, and then when all this Black Lives Matter stuff happens, they're doing fundraisers, and they're like talking about these things. And so it's like, I would rather see somebody do actions that show that they've like rethought about things, reconsidered stuff, rather than hearing like, I'm sorry.
It's about growth, and I think that's the theme of the Donkey Kong 64 playthrough. No, it actually works.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant the game.
No, it works thematically, because I think a lot of the stuff we talked about, we kind of started out saying, okay, how have we grown the past couple of years?
Yeah.
But also, this is a game I played growing up, and I'm kind of like, and this is another interesting thing that has to do with growth, because that's the theme, so now we're focusing on it.
Yes.
And I thought about it when you were talking about YouTube, is I remember when I was younger, like much younger, I used to idolize a lot of YouTube. I mean, people do this with celebrities and stuff too.
Yeah.
I used to idolize and be like, oh, so cool. I want to be like them.
It's hitting the wall.
This is something that you learn when you grow up. I don't want to be like anybody anymore. I don't have like an idol. I don't have like an idol where it's like, oh, I should try and be more like that person. There is no, I have no emotions. And that used to be all the time. Like when I was way more into film, it'd be like, oh, I want to be like this director. I want to be like that. And it's like, there's nobody I want to be.
There's
like
nobody.
right now.
There are people that I like. There are, I would say, like celebrities that I respect.
No, and it's like, oh, that's cool that they did that. And I appreciate that, but
Yeah.
I don't want to. They're doing that, and they're doing a good
Yeah.
job at it. I want to do my thing. What's my contribution? I don't.
Yeah.
I think when you're younger, there's a very easy thing to like. You want to be like the cool people or the other people. I'm not trying to be all high horsey like. I'm me special because I don't even know how much I want to be me. I just know that like this is my best move.
Well, because I would say, like from what I kind of learned as a teacher,
I gotta go down here, maybe. Yeah, I think so.
I don't know.
I should figure.
Oh, you have to go on the water.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. You learn as a teacher that a lot of little kids like learn from a lot from modeling and like seeing what other people do in situations. And so I think that makes sense that little kids would feel that way. You know, and kind of interpret the world that way is because like you're literally like looking to people to understand how to navigate certain social situations and the like. And so it makes sense that you as a little kid would be like, I want to be like this person. I want to be, you know, whatever. But then as an adult, you realize that that modeling or like like figuring out how you want to act based off of other people can only take you so far.
I don't even understand what the challenge of this room was. I thought there would be a puzzle with these tiles, but it's just like I had to kill. Yeah, and I feel like I was so focused on like, say again, going back to movies, it's kind of just like if I do things that are like the things that I like, then I will be good.
Yeah.
Which is a weird way to phrase it. But yeah, it's like emulation where it's like you can't just you're not contributing anything if you're just doing what other people have done or like what you think is good. That's cool how she gets up like that. Oh, I used my saxophone. So that's an important part of growing up. And I feel like, I mean, I haven't really thought about how to word it, I guess necessarily, because I think it's a cheap sentiment to just be like, be yourself. But at the same time, like, that's, like, it's more about, I don't know how to phrase it, but it's just like, I need the triangle.
Lanky Kong.
No, that's Chunky.
Oh.
It's,
what does Lanky do?
Lanky does the trombone, which I think was actually... I guess when you do middle school band, they kind of help you pick out what instrument you want, but I think Lanky Kong playing the trombone was a big part of why I ended up playing the trombone. I'm not joking.
Oh, I know you aren't. I think, like, obviously the be yourself thing is kind of trite, but I would say the more nuanced nuanced approach to it, I would say would be like, you can't really exist beyond the experiences that you've had. So like how you construct your own understanding of yourself is based off of what you've encountered in life. And so you're always kind of taking stuff from other people.
Yes, that's 100% true. And I think that's something you really have to get over.
Yeah.
Because the opposite is also true, that I think people are really afraid where it's like, oh, I can't do this because X did it. And it's like, you've talked about this before, how everything you do is derivative and learned.
Yeah.
And you're not copying... I don't know, it just depends...
But it's also, it's like, literally, like, animals... It's kind of physiologically what we like humans and apes do is we mimic other people. Like that's why yawning happens, like on a basic physiological level. So it would make sense that like you speak in ways that are similar to other people around you, or like you come up, or when when somebody does something, like part of your first urge is kind of be like, oh, Pulp Fiction is cool, and you like are an aspiring filmmaker, and you're like a little. Or you're like 15 and you're like, I want to make something like that, you know. Like that's it's natural to feel that way.
I know, and I think it's a weird thing where it's like, okay, instead of me making Pulp Fiction, it's like, how do I use inspiration for that to create my own thing? Mm-hmm. But it goes way even beyond just like because that's an easy way to package it, is like emulating a creator. Even just like the way you talk and the way you interact with other people, it's going to be an amalgamation of like your parents and your friends and all this crap.
Totally. That's why we have accents. Like, I have noticed with other people, like, who have, like, two people I know, like, I've known separately, and then they, like, started becoming friends, and then they started saying things that are similar.
Mm-hmm.
I've just noticed it, like, over the years with people I know from high school or college or whatever, and I'm like, oh yeah, this person used to say that, and now this other person's saying that, and it's just, like, kind of an idiosyncrasy that they picked up from each other. And part of I think that what I've understood about myself is, over the past couple of years, is that it's not, like, my own individuality does not really matter in the grand scheme of things.
I don't like that. I don't think that's true.
I mean, like, it matters to me as in, like, I want to know as a person who I am and, like, what I value and that kind of stuff. But I think, like, the idea for me as a, let's say, when I'm writing an article to be published, like, my goal is not to be, like, I'm going to come up with something so original that nobody's ever thought of it before.
No. But
that's not a good
But
thing
I
to aspire
also
to.
think that you need to lean into, okay, I'm writing an article. Well, I think that if you're David writing an article, it should be an article that only David would write.
Well, yeah, definitely. So, like,
So I think, like, embracing your individuality is really important for that type of thing too. Because if you're writing an article and you're trying to just, like, sound like anybody else, then there's no point in you doing it. It needs to be a David Kochik article or essay.
Yeah, so it's a tricky balance to make, where it's like you need to kind of pay homage to your own experiences and your own ideas, while also understanding that that doesn't make you inherently more creative or more original than other people.
It certainly doesn't.
I don't like the term groundbreaking. I think it's, or cultural reset.
Oh, I like those. I use that. I think that stuff's cool. I think there are times where you see something, you're like, this is kind of, even if it's been done before, it can be done in a different context. It can be done and said in a new way. I think you see movies or podcasts or books, and you're like, okay, this is kind of what's going to define the next couple of years of what we're going to see. And I think studying and learning about that stuff is interesting.
Or at the very least, like, talking or discussing why something became as culturally prominent as it did, I think is all
I already have this
great
open.
stuff too. You already beat this guy.
No, this is the dragonfly. I didn't do him yet.
Oh, I thought you did.
I'm going to do that now.
So yeah, I like I said, it's an inherently tricky thing where originality is good, but it's also overrated.
I don't like how that's phrased. I don't know. I don't think there's an importance of like your individuality should be preserved or prioritized. I don't think that's true at all. But I think internally you need to understand what makes you you.
Yeah.
You need to understand, like, what can I do that other people can't, and how can I contribute in that way. And I think that's really important. But in terms of, like, if you're in a group of people, you can't be like, well, I'm David, I'm the smart one, so... Which is exactly what David does. But there's... You don't have any priority over anybody else. You're not special.
No.
But like... You have things to offer that other people
I have
can't.
areas of expertise that I know that, like, other people don't.
And just as well, you need to be like, okay, well, there are things I really need to work on.
Yeah.
And that's part of that self-awareness, I guess, is the key phrase here. Not, like, originality, but just, like, understanding yourself.
See, but I think people kind of cling to this idea that they are very self-important, and so that's why you have people getting their guns out because they think that how they feel should supersede what other people feel.
I think that's even less. People have no identity to do that. Their identity is what I've always known is what is the only thing that can exist.
See, that's
like a lack of identity.
See, but like with the mask wearing people, for example, they think in their minds that makes them an individual, right? That they are a free thinker and that they're going against the government because the government's trying to get them to do this.
But they aren't being a free thinker.
Exactly. That's the irony there. That's why self-awareness is important.
I know, yeah. That's because it's like, I don't know. It's I guess like
it's almost comical.
Well, it's like I don't know. It's like the difference between being selfish and like there's a difference between being selfish and like having self-value, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, you should not be prioritizing your life or ideas over others because everyone should, it's a cheesy way to say, but everyone should kind of be on an equal footing with those kind of things. I think with those types of people, it's less about that, and it's wow, that was really easy. I thought that was harder. I think they're just so afraid of change, and just like I cannot cope with the idea of having to do things differently than how I've ever done it. And to me, that couldn't be any more indicative of having no identity. Your identity is important, and that is just showing that your identity is only. And I mean, like, okay, so you gather what and you form your identity based off the things and ideas around you, right? Well, these people's identity has only ever been exactly what they were told by the people they think are smart or correct.
Yeah.
They are not thinking about anything else, but that's not the same thing as thinking critically and understanding your value and contributions.
Well, yeah. It's kind of the pot calling the kettle black kind of thing,
and
right?
it's confusing too because you can do selfish things for a good cause. I mean, obviously nothing's black and white, but you can, for example, I don't even know if you could call this selfish, but for example, if people are protesting in a busy Oakland Avenue street, closing it down right by our apartments in Milwaukee, that's something that you could argue in, like, people make this argument that that's selfish because, oh, people got to get to work, people got to get to the eye doctor. But there are times where you need to prioritize your ideas and ideologies ahead, and that's why it's hard, because in a weird way, people who are not wearing masks probably feel that they are taking a stand for an idea that is bigger than they am, and maybe I'm giving too much credit to it, but it's muddy, because there are times where I'm like, this is obviously prioritizing things that, this is inconveniencing others because the ideas or the group I'm with, I think, represents the moral or ethical correctness of the situation. But I could and I don't like the whole centrist thing. That's another thing you learn when you grow up. I felt like, this is a huge tangent. I'm just rambling.
No, it's good.
When I was young,
are you supposed to hit those gongs? I think
I
you're
don't
supposed
have
to hit
the
them.
chimpy charge yet.
Oh, I thought you did. Yeah, you do.
Oh, okay, I do. This is just gonna open a barrel though, and I don't want to do it right now. I'm gonna put the key in, and. Okay, I'll start the next episode, double, because I have another rant. We'll turn this key in and then we'll cut this one.
Okay.
We talk about people pointing guns at masks, or people wear masks.
Let me just, while we're doing this, I'll talk about my experience today.
Yeah.
So I stopped by a rally in Stillwater, which is a town across the river from where Travis and I
Some
are
controversy right now.
There's been KKK group. I'm not sure exactly how it came down, but basically there were white power people.
Yeah, I heard it was white supremacists.
White supremacists, that kind of thing. And so there was a rally supporting Black Lives Matter. Let me just say, the people who were at the rally were wearing masks, and everybody. This is my own experience. I'm not saying this across the board. The other people who were walking around downtown Stillwater were not wearing masks, and they weren't attending the rally. They were just kind of going to businesses and
Everyone's always really nice at those things too.
Yeah, and so for me, I wonder if people can just say, oh, it's politicized because Donald Trump's politicized it. I wonder if there is a connection between like an inherent acknowledgement of other people besides yourself also being important in both of those contexts.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is I think people who are not wearing masks are basically saying that their ideology of, don't tread on me, you can't tell me what to do, takes priority over the comfort and lives of other people.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm not saying I get it, but I'm saying it's like, oh, they think they're the Boston Tea Party or like something like that. But it just seems like, to me, a gross misrepresentation of the people that they idolize and like the concepts and ideas that they try to push forward.
Yeah. I was thinking about this the other day because I got an email for like a call for papers for a conference that was about like punk culture, but not in like the legit 80s 90s punk, like original punk cultures, was kind of what this one was focusing on. And like the punk idea, or like sticking it to authority or whatever, is really about like I think about like punching upward, right? Like that's huge. That's another huge thing. But to me, like the people who aren't wearing masks it's not the same as like resisting authority because or like being morally or ethically superior
the people
because
at risk
the people at risk are people who are already like hurting more than you if
Yeah.
you choose not to wear a mask because people who you know have illnesses, have pre-existing conditions, are
People
older
who
than
work
you. People
frontline positions.
Yep, people who are people of color, particularly black people, right? Those are all people who are getting affected by this. So when people think like, "Oh, I'm like resisting the authorities," you're not really because you're just punching downward on other people who are already more disadvantaged and oppressed than you.
Okay. Donkey Kong says, "Give a hoot, don't lick the boot." Okay,
Don't
we'll
chop
pick it up.
the boot.
We've been going for a while. We'll come back.